Merry Christmas, everybody! Trevor here, and welcome to another festive top video. And for this year's topic, we'll be looking at more of my favorite Christmas movies. But instead of another top 12, I'm shortening it to a top 5 instead. For this list, I will be including at least a couple adult-themed Christmas movies because there are a couple I do love. I also want to include certain ones that were in the honorable mentions of the last top 12 video. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we? Coming at number 5 is Violent Night. This is an R-rated action comedy thriller where a badass Santa Claus, played by David Harbour, must save a family that was held hostage by a group of criminals. I don't know about you, but I love this movie. While the action is quite brutal, the funny parts make up for it. For instance, there was a scene where Santa Claus fights one of the bad guys named Frosty while happy music is playing, which makes this scene hilarious as hell. I especially love the character development between Santa Claus and a little girl named Trudy and how they interacted with each other by walkie-talkie. I don't know, it's just sweet and charming. However, I put this low on the list because even though I'm an adult nowadays, but I'm normally not that crazy about R-rated films in general due to their explicit content such as sexuality and graphic violence. I also find it funny that the mercenaries had funny names, especially Mr. Scrooge, who was the boss of them all. Not to mention that it's quite ironic that they're all on the naughty list. Still, when it comes to R-rated Christmas movies, this is the one I would recommend the most because of these reasons alone. Number 4. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. When it comes to PG-13 Christmas movies in general, this is my favorite of the bunch mainly because of its humor. I mean, Chevy Chase does a great job playing as Clark Griswold. I especially found it funny when he flicked off a couple jerks on the road at the beginning of the film. It's got other good actors too, like Brian Doyle Murray as Clark's mean boss, who you may also recognize as various cartoon roles such as the Flying Dutchman from SpongeBob SquarePants, just to name one. Oh, and I also want to point out that the 2D animated introduction looks beautiful and filled with funny gags here and there. Another one of my favorite moments is with the climax of the film where a cranky Uncle Lewis and his senile wife, Aunt Bethany, arrive at the Christmas party. And to be frank, Aunt Bethany makes me laugh because of her dementia, which is the entire joke of her character. No offense to people who have dementia in real life, I'm not trying to downplay that in any way. A perfect example of Aunt Bethany's funny character is when she was asked to say grace at the Christmas dinner, but instead of saying grace, she says the American Pledge of Allegiance. Trust me, as a kid, I've tried playing that joke at Christmas dinner every time with my family, and my parents and sister had to keep telling me to shut up because it's not appropriate. In conclusion, even though this movie has its naughty moments like the skinny dipping scene, which I thought was pretty pointless in my opinion, but if you look past all that, this is one of the funniest and most memorable PG-13 Christmas movies I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. I suggest you give it an honest chance. Number 3. A Charlie Brown Christmas and its sequel. I should have added this a long time ago, but I didn't. A Charlie Brown Christmas was one of the best Charlie Brown specials of all time, along with many other specials such as the Great Pumpkin one. But right now, let's focus on the Christmas specials. What I love about A Charlie Brown Christmas is not only it had funny and charming characters like Snoopy, but I also love the very calm and very relaxing piano music by Vince Guaraldi. My most favorite moments are the part where Linus talks about the nativity story to the audience in Charlie Brown, as well as the ending where everyone decorated the very small and skinny tree into a more beautiful one. And after they did that, they started humming Hark the Herald Angels Sings hymn, which is so calming to the ears. Now let's talk about its sequel, It's Christmas Time Again, Charlie Brown. As much as I love the first one, but I think the sequel is a lot better in terms of additional humor and writing. For example, there was a scenario where Charlie Brown was trying to sell Christmas wreaths, but to no avail. There was this one part where he asked a girl, "Would you like to buy a Christmas wreath?" She replies, "It isn't even Thanksgiving yet." And after a short pause, Charlie Brown asks, "Would you like to buy a Thanksgiving wreath?" Man, that was funny. I also laughed at the bit where Charlie's little sister Sally was getting ready for the Christmas play as an angel, where her only line was to say, "Hark," but in the end, she accidentally said, "hockey stick." Later, she gets upset over it and believes that everyone hates her because of it and wonders what Harold Angel was going to say, who turns out to be a ginger-haired boy at Charlie's door asking if Sally was home, which is the biggest joke in the entire episode. You see why I love this more than the original? Not to say that the original was bad by any means, I just think that its respective sequel was an improvement in terms of humor and writing, but that's just my opinion. Still, I'm putting these two Charlie Brown Christmas specials as a two-way tie, just to be nice. After all, it is Christmas, and I love the Peanuts. Number 2. The Year Without a Santa Claus. Remember when I talked about this as an honorable mention in one of my previous Christmas videos? Well, I decided to put this as number 2 for different reasons. Firstly, it's got Mickey Rooney in it as Santa Claus, who also voiced him in Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which was really good, and Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July, which was mediocre at best. Secondly, I love the Miser Brothers and the respective songs in this movie. I swear, the Miser Brothers two-part song is one of my favorite Christmas songs along with many others. And furthermore, I enjoy the special's overall plot where Santa Claus feels sick and had to stay home, while his wife wanted to fill in for the job just so that Christmas won't be cancelled. I even like the subplot with Jingle and Jangle Bells where they visited a town that never snows. Thankfully, in the end, because of a sad letter from a little girl, Santa then has a change of heart and decides to not cancel Christmas after all, which is a very satisfying ending in my opinion. Overall, when it comes to Mickey Rooney roles in these Rankin Bass Christmas specials, The Year Without a Santa Claus is my second favorite of the bunch because of these reasons alone. I suggest you give this one a watch. Now, before I get to my number 1 pick, I just want to give some honorable mentions. The Santa Claus trilogy. They're really good, don't get me wrong, but I find it weird that the elves were played by kids instead of actual dwarf actors, so that's why these didn't make it on the list. A Miser Brothers Christmas. It's good too, but not as good as the original in terms of writing and execution. Though I'll give it credit for bringing back Mickey Rooney as Santa Claus, as well as the original voice of Heat Miser before their respective passing. Love the Coopers. It's alright for the most part, though it's kind of boring. But the best part about it is the dog narrating the whole story in his head, because, I love dogs. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. This one didn't make it because it's technically a Thanksgiving-themed movie rather than a Christmas one. Krampus. I actually haven't seen it yet, though I'm not really a horror movie guy. And the number 1 spot goes to Netflix's Klouse. In my opinion, when it comes to Netflix exclusive Christmas specials, this is the best one of them all. This movie's about a lazy and selfish postman named Jesper Johansson, voiced by Jason Schwartzman, who was tasked to deliver a bunch of letters to an unfriendly town called Smearensburg, where two families rivaled each other for no good reason. He eventually meets his would-be love interest named Alva, who eventually becomes a school teacher of the town, and Jesper eventually bonded with a huge and strong woodsman named Klouse, who is basically Santa Claus, and was voiced by J.K. Simmons, the same guy who played J. Jonah Jameson from the original Spider-Man trilogy. And in the end, because of Jesper and Klause's heroism and partnership, they managed to save Christmas and make Smearensburg a better place to live by having the two rival families get along and spread Christmas cheer. There are so many reasons why I love this movie. For one thing, I love the 2D animation that they use because it's something that we animation fans haven't seen in a very long time. It's too bad that it got beat up by Toy Story 4 at the Oscars. The second reason why I love Klouse is the relationship and dynamic between Jesper and Klouse. Jesper's mannerisms and gestures remind me a lot like Kuzco from The Emperor's New Groove, while Klouse is a lot like Pachu from that same movie in terms of being the big, strong protagonist. And thirdly, when it comes to Santa Claus origin stories in general, this one would be my second favorite, with Santa Claus is Coming to Town being number 1. And the reason this works so well is because of the wonderful writing and characters. I especially felt bad for Klouse when he lost his wife, and the reason he made a bunch of toys is because he wanted children of his own, which never happened unfortunately. In fact, it's a much better Santa Claus origin story than that horrible elf bully movie that I reviewed a long time ago. So overall, I give Klouse a 10 out of 10 stars for best effort. I highly recommend that you give this movie a watch just so you can see how great it looks in comparison to Toy Story 4. Seriously though, why did Toy Story 4 have to beat Klouse at the Oscars? I mean, I love Toy Story in general, but come on! Klouse deserved better treatment than this. Anyways, let me know in the comment section below on which Christmas movies are your favorite. Do you agree with my list, or do you have your own personal preference? And I'm sure some of you guys were wondering, what are your thoughts on The Nightmare Before Christmas? Well, to be frank, I forgot to do that video a couple months ago because I was so focused on Disney stuff at the time for the 100th anniversary. I'm thinking I should make a top 5 Halloween movies next year in October. Then I could add that movie to the list. This is Trevor Davis saying, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night!